Welcome back, everyone, to Southern Tomfoolery Unlimited, the interview show where we like to STF you for once and listen to the wise words of our wonderful guests. I'm your host, Zach Evans, joined as always by my good friend, Adam Kelly. Adam, real quick, what's the square root of pi?
The last slice is mine.
Awesome. Glad to hear it, buddy. I'm doing great as well. Today we have a wonderful guest. He is a development manager for Paizo and author of numerous AP books, articles, back matter, and other Starfinder-related literature, Mr. Jason Keeley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jason, before we get into your role at Paizo, we'd love to hear about what brought you to the table. How did you get into tabletop role-playing?
Well, as a kid growing up, I did have a red box D&D, right? But I didn't have anyone to play it with ever. One of my friend's fathers was running something for them, but I just happened to not be invited. I was more into video game RPGs at the time, right? Just gonna really just show my age here. But I've already done that by saying red box D&D. But I love the Might and Magic series of games. I played some, the Ultima, the Wizardry, Bard's Tale, all that stuff. I got into those SSI Gold Box, Eye of the Beholder and stuff like that. Eventually up to, the Baldur's Gate isometric stuff from
I loved me some Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate was good. Torment, Planescape was terrific. That kind of stuff. So, I just played a bunch of those things up until maybe my 30s, I want to say, ish. Early, late 20s, early 30s when I moved to, at that point I think I was moving back to New York City. And a friend of mine from college was like, oh, I know these guys from the Renaissance Fair, and we play games. We play role-playing games. And I was like, oh, I know what role-playing games are. I've just never done it before. I knew when I was in college, I was like, if I get into role-playing games, I'm going to get too deep into role-playing games. And so eventually it happened. This friend of mine invited me to come play a game, and it was a game of the Game Master's own design. It was something he'd written himself, sort of a riff on the vampire game. So I was basically playing a vampire. We were all vampires, and that's where I got started. And I hung out with this group for a long time. We played all sorts of games, many of which were written by the Game Master, which is very interesting. And eventually, came to a point where another friend of mine from school who wasn't living in New York was like, "Hey, let's you like games? Let's start making games." And I was like, oh, yeah, I know a guy who makes games and stuff like that. So we sat down and we started planning out an idea for a campaign setting for 3.5. And by this point, I had already been running my own 3.5 games and other things like that. And then, we sat down and we figured out some stuff right when Wizards was like, we're going to 4th edition. And I was like, great, good chiming. And at the same time, Paizo was putting out Pathfinder. So we made a decision at the time. It's like, oh, what we need to do is we'll just quickly, we've already laid this out and printed a bunch of stuff. We decided, well, we'll just put out a quick free supplement. How to change this from 3.5 to Pathfinder. And it was just like, take jump out, right? That kind of thing. Change the skill names. There wasn't really a whole lot to do. Because it was a lot of fun. It was a setting in which it was sort of more Renaissance focused than medieval focused, right? It was like, let's have a printing press. Let's have minor firearm, flintlocks and wheel locks and stuff like that. Let's do fencing. Let's have a fencing system. And so we put that all in there. I decided I really wanted Knowles to be a main playable character, so I wrote up some Knowles stuff. That's sort of where I got started. That book is called Nobis, Nobis. I don't know if you can find it anywhere anymore. It did get nominated for an Emmy, which was cool, but that was when Paizo was just sweeping the Emmys left and right. We put that out in the fun. I wrote an adventure for that, a very Shakespeare-themed adventure, because I was in theater in college, of course. All the people I knew I was playing with who were in the Ren Fair were also doing theater in New York City. So it was very theater heavy. And then that was sort of happening. We were didn't know what to do with it because it was 4th edition, Pathfinder stuff. This thing. We decided that this other friend of mine who was running all these games, this GM, was we'd write a game from scratch. We had this sort of idea to make a game based around tarot, having the tarot deck as a resolution system. And so he was like, oh, well, but I don't want it to be touchy-feely, like, you pull strength and you're real strong. It's sort of like, it's got to have mechanical effects. He was a very mechanically oriented guy. So the two of us sort of put our heads together and we started coming up with all these cool rules and whatnot. We decided to set it in actual Renaissance Europe, but also there are elves and dwarves, so it's that sort of, version of things. Because we knew that, like, the tarot stuff would be tricky for for players coming in, and we wanted to give them this sort of like, what fantasy is, right? You can have that as a toehold. And then you've got, swords and magic and stuff like that. So it's like you draw a card and you whether or not it succeeds or fails and that stuff. That game's called Fortune's Fool, and we put out a little campaign book for it, we put out a little supplement for it, and also full of free supplements, and it did win a Judge's Choices NE, which I was very happy about. That was like a decade ago, over a decade ago at this point. At that point, I sort of started to branch out. I, at the time, was working as a crossword puzzle editor. And I wanted to get out. I kind of wanted to get out of New York City. I kind of wanted to just sort of branch out to do a different job. And I, eventually found my way to. I applied for a bunch of jobs in the tabletop industry, board games and stuff like that. But eventually, I got to know the people at Paizo. I did an interview for an editing position. Didn't get it, but then did some freelancing, and then less than a year later was hired as an editor. I was also at the time applying for a developer position, and it was sort of like a toss up there. And I was like, I'll just go with the editing because I felt like editing was more my strong suit at the time. And that's how I got to Paizo. That's my story. Yeah.
Well, just real quick, I am never surprised when someone in this business says that they were a theater kid at some point.
It's
I'm never surprised.
De rigueur almost.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the skills translate so well,
Right.
Yeah. So let me just sort of improv.
No, go ahead.
Was my big thing in college. I did a lot of improv, and improvising and GMing have and playing too, right? In a lot of ways, have a lot of things in common, and I have always
absolutely
said that.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of improv in like any theater that I did, but Adam and I both improved a lot as musicians, and I think the fundamental principles there still apply. Yeah. The yes-anding, that sort of thing, that stuff.
It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, this led you to Paizo, and eventually you started developing adventures for Starfinder.
That's right. Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about your role in the Paizoverse?
Yeah, so I was editor for several years, and then it's coming down the line that, second edition Pathfinder's coming. Right? Like, that's pretty cool. But in the meantime, we're going to do Starfinder. So I got kind of conscripted into that. If you want to do this, I'm like, yeah, I like space and stuff. So I got conscripted into the sort of secondary team to look at the book and get the core rule book out and start developing that. And at the same time, thinking about like what else. We were doing the first Alien Archive. We were doing Pack World, sort of all kind of mixed up and together. And Rob McCreary and I, who's a big AP developer, sort of that chunk was sort of taken. He was like, I'm going to take that skills over to the Starfinder AP stuff. So he planned out the whole Dead Sons AP. And at some point I was like, I'd like to write one of those, please. I'd like to write an adventure for Paizo. It was my goal one of my goals to working for Paizo would be to writing an adventure for them, because I really enjoyed all the stuff they did. I would have been a long-time subscriber when they did 3.5. And even before that, even when they started doing their own Adventure Path volumes. And I thought, they do great work, and so I want to be part of that, and I want to see if I can do it myself. And I did. Rob was like, yeah, do it. Let's do the fourth volume of Dead Sons. And so eventually it came to the point where he didn't want to be developing the adventures himself anymore. So he's like, well, he trained me up on that, basically. And that's how I became the adventure developer. And I have the claim to fame is that I have developed more Starfinder adventures than any living human being. And probably any dead human being. I have. It's amazing.
Probably any dead as well.
Yeah. We're closing in on developing the 50th one of these, and
is it really that many?
Well, if you count per book.
If you count per book, right?
Yeah. 50 volumes, 50 adventures.
Okay.
This is the 11 adventure paths, let's say.
Yeah. Because there's 3 to 6 in each one. That makes way.
Yeah,
I was like, no way, I've missed that many.
No.
Zach's like,
There's no way.
Come
Like,
on, Adam, where
I
you
know
at?
kind of what's going on in Starfinder.
Yeah. No, it's
absolutely. So as the adventure developer, you oversee the project as a whole, essentially.
Yeah. As the lead developer of an adventure path, you outline it. You work with the other adventure path developers and the other developers and whatnot. To get input. I always need I don't know what to do in the middle here. What do everyone throws? We throw ideas around, and eventually it comes outline, finding the authors for them, and then scheduling all of that. And then once the authors have turned in the text, it's just keeping it all the pieces moving in one direction, keeping it all to Paizo style, right? And just sort of being the director of the movie, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and I was going to ask, how do you like being the director versus being the writer?
I think I enjoy it. It is, they're different skill sets, I gotta say,
right?
And some days I like one more than the other, probably. But there is some there's some writing that needs to be done sometimes when you're the director. You just got this piece doesn't fit with the other 2 adventures here, right? And or whatever, but or this just didn't come out the way I had sort of hoped. So just you tweak it, but I'm always trying to keep the author's original intent and because everyone comes up with great stuff that I never would have thought of, right? Like, this, and you go in here and this other stuff happens. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's perfect, that's awesome. I try to give guidance as to how an adventure should go, but it's milestones. It's like at the beginning they start here, they should probably go and do this thing in the middle, and then by the end they should be here. What's in the middle, how they get there, there's basically a back and forth between me and the author for about a month, I would say, where they send me some, I think this, and I say, oh, check that out, and that
awesome. Okay, yeah, absolutely. No, I follow that. I think that's interesting. I think it's one of those things where you write long enough and eventually you become an editor, and eventually you're going to go on and not necessarily do the bulk of your work have it be writing, I guess. So it's sort of an inevitability. But anyway, so you still do some GMing, right? You still
yes.
play some games. So
I try.
Do you Do you like to play test ideas for upcoming modules or adventures, or is it just a chance for you to tell stories that are just for you, or maybe a little bit of both?
What happens? I mean, I would love to be able to play test more of the stuff that we have on the clock, right? But we're always putting out so much stuff that it becomes near impossible. For like a big thing like second edition Pathfinder when that came out, there was a lot of playtesting going on the clock and with the designers. But sometimes we just don't have time. Right, and we have other books that we're putting out, and so when I go and when I'm running a game for myself, it is mostly for myself, for the people that I'm running for, and it's less, it's more of so I can relax about it. I'm doing far less gaming or GMing than I did before I got this job and moved out here, but that's also because I moved to a whole other town. I didn't know anybody, and I'm
right.
At that point, the virtual tools were not really in place. But since I gotta say, since the pandemic has started and all that lockdown happened at the beginning, I had this group that we had back in New York City. Not the same group that eventually got me into. It was a different group of people. We play every Wednesday night now, and we switch GMs and we switch systems, and we're just constantly doing all kinds of wacky, crazy stuff that I just love.
Yeah. I mean, we started playing virtually, right? So it's one of those things. It's been interesting to watch so many people adapt to virtual tabletops as a result of the pandemic, and it's like we were pandemic ready, I guess. From the jump, But yeah, it's a little different than the table feel of sitting around at a table, but it's very serviceable, I think, and you can still tell some great stories together. But speaking of telling stories, you've told quite a few with your book writing credits. As you said, you've probably written more than any other living or dead human.
Not written. When it comes to Starfinder. I would say not written, just developed, right? From
just developed.
I've had my fingers in all of them. Written though, I'm always probably going to be behind Ron Lundeen. Even Starfinder Adventures, he's written probably more than anybody.
He's written quite a few,
Yeah, he's definitely written quite a few. But developed it. I've concepted and developed more than anyone else, I would say.
And some of the new ones that you're working on include the Horizons of the Vast AP. So let's talk about some of that a little bit. Basically, Horizons of the Vast, from my understanding, this is Kingmaker in space, right? So, how did you crack this nut?
Sure,
so to speak?
Indeed, that's sort of the premise that we had on the whiteboard probably for a bit, right? Coming into Starfinder existence, Kingmaker was already a very popular adventure path, and probably one of the very most popular ones. This was even, before it became the Owlcat game came out. We were sort of maybe we'll do Kingmaker in space or something. We didn't know how to do it, so we did a bunch of other little stories, and eventually it was like, I think it's time we try to do it. So it just comes down to luckily, sort of simultaneously, we were working on the Galaxy Exploration Manual, which has sort of rules for the hex crawling, right? Which means we didn't have to reproduce them in the adventure path. So we started with that, and there is some text in there that sort of summarizes it. A lot of it is in that Galaxy Exploration Manual, and then then it came down to the story, which is obviously for me one of the more important things. Going to a planet and building a new place there in a city and sort of making it on your own is a classic sci-fi trope, right? And we wanted to do that, but we also wanted to be very careful about colonization, being colonial about it, right? It's not you go to a planet and there are already some aliens there, and you also, even if it was friendly, like they said, come on, it just wouldn't feel right. So I had to just sort of, just from the baseline, just come from, this planet has no one on it to begin with. That's not a spoiler, I don't think. It's pretty much set out right at the beginning that the Pack Worlds and the Vescarium going to find this planet. It's beautiful and lush, and it's got all the biomes that you need, and breathable air and whatnot, and there's nobody on it. It's got tons of resources. Why is nobody on it? Let's go find out. And so, you come and you're part of it, one of many charters. I was very careful to try to avoid using words like colony or colonization. Settlement came up a lot, that was a little it's a little on the border. Pioneer is a little on the border, but I worked with all of our great editors to be like, okay, these are the words I think are okay, and what do you think? And so we got a vocabulary down eventually.
Yeah.
And I feel like I hit on the word charter as like a land charter, being kind of like good enough, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's more you can't be a kingdom because it's not that's too fantasy, right? I had to come up with something a little more modern-esque, sci-fi-esque.
Right.
So it was that, and then from there I worked backwards and tried to figure out why there's no one on this planet that's got a ton of resources. Oh, and surprise, there needed to be mysteries to solve and not just fighting animals and plant creatures and whatnot, right? So I came up with that stuff. I'm not going to spoil it, just in case anyone's listening who's playing through what's going on throughout the adventure path, but it goes to I think an interesting and fun place. To the point where you solve a mystery of why there's no one here, but yet there might be some abandoned buildings or something underground. Those kinds of things happen, but why they're happening, you don't know until you figure it all out. And eventually it comes through, and then it comes down to that stuff that basically happens sort of at the end of Kingmaker. There's kind of war, and you've got to fight somebody else. There's maybe trying to take your stuff or whatever. So that was an interesting challenge.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, other than obviously trying to avoid using the language of colonialism, what were some other challenges of bringing this whole AP together?
Well, right off the bat, too, we needed a, kingdom building system, right? That's the big thing of Kingmaker is that you've got the hexes, and we have that. You can go out and explore things, but then you get to build stuff. And to sort of update that in a way that was that we could fit in an AP volume. Not too complicated, but robust enough to be interesting. So I had to write that basically on the clock. And at the time, we, there's it's probably no. I mean, it's no secret. It's no secret that there's going to be like a second edition Pathfinder Kingmaker book that we're sort of been working on for ages. And I gotta look at how that works in second edition. But it was like I can't go this complicated. It's not that it's complicated. It was just a lot of pages and pages of stuff that I just couldn't fit anywhere in a slim 64-page volume. So I had to trim it down. I came up with some borrowed some ideas from that, but also in my head, I wanted to make it similar to. Have you ever played Seven Wonders?
No, card game. I'm familiar with the game. Yeah,
it's a drafting card game where you get a bunch of cards, and you get at the beginning you pick a card and you try get some resources and then use those resources to build your wonder and your civilization while everyone's doing it, right? So in that game, it's sort of like you have once you have a quarry, right? You have stone, and you can build anything that requires one stone. You don't have to generate the stone and then spend it like you deal with a lot of other resource management type board games. It's sort of you have that. So it's just I thought about this sort of like these thresholds. You would get certain thresholds, like your technology was this number, it's 2 or greater, and when it gets there, you can build a school or whatever, or a broadcast station, right? And then those buildings would sort of pile up on each other, and when you build a school, your technology goes up by another one. And so you could, but you don't spend it down, right? It's all just sort of numbers that you do have to have resources that you generate every, charter turn, and what you need to spend, but that's how you get them is a different story. But then it's
kind of more like civilization type rules, where you're just like building up like districts and like ideas that are represented by integers rather than actually keeping track of, 7,000 UPBs coming every week.
Sure, right. Or like, where in your settlement you have to put the school. No, it's just if you have a school in this settlement, you have another, you can spend some extra, resources to start another settlement on the other side of the charter, whatever. And so there were rules for all that. And that was something we actually did manage to get a couple quick play tests in to sort of test the numbers with on the clock. So I think it turned out pretty interesting. I was curious to see how people feel about it, because when I ran Kingmaker back in the day, and there was a sort of some people get involved with that subsystem and some other players don't, and it came down to like I felt as a GM I was also running it for them, so hopefully this is interesting enough that players will also get interested in it, and it's not just the GM going like, well, it's time to do more charter stuff. You can also just, you can just sort of leave that by the wayside in this adventure path. If you really
I was going to ask, like,
are
all of these systems mandatory, or can you kind of pick and choose which ones you really want to engage with?
There's
your table. Yeah,
if your table isn't into it, I think you can kind of hand wave it. I can't remember now in the first volume if I've put any kind of sidebar about hand waving it, but for the most part it's just you want to explore and you pick some stuff out, and then the GM can say like every couple months or in game months that it's just like, oh, you've got this now, your things are growing and building, and then at the end there's the sort of like what choices you made do matter for the very last volume, and some of them are built around this charter subsystem, but I'm sure also you could sort of massage that a little bit quite easily.
Sure, but I think also if you're going to start that AP, you kind of have to want to get involved with those systems, right?
It's like,
you don't
why
start
not?
Kingmaker if you're like, I'm not really interested in building a kingdom. Let's play Kingmaker,
Yeah,
right.
Some of the players in my group were not as interested as others, but they were just wanted to hang out and play, right?
Well, I wonder if it's like one of those things where it seems like, oh, that's really cool, we're going to build a kingdom, and then like when it comes to actually having to do like the spreadsheet, some players are like, you guys can just make the choices. I know that's kind of how it's been on a smaller scale sometimes with the Starship. Right. Yeah. Like, so like we have like 1 to 2 players that manage the Starship and level it up, and the rest of the players are just like, okay, cool.
I don't even know what these things do.
I'm the pilot. Fair. I'm cool. What bonus can I take from the computers for my pilot? That's all I need to know.
How fast does this go again? Good. All right. That's all I need to know.
What's the turning? Yeah. So one of the interesting things about doing this AP, about having an unexplored planet, is the potential for all kinds of wild flora and fauna. And I mean, that's one of Starfinder's greatest strengths, I think, is the diversity of life that you can get. And such a weird science fantasy setting that Starfinder presents. So did you have any kind of guidelines for how this biology would work on this planet or anything like that? And if you did, what are some of your favorite monsters or creatures on this unexplored planet?
It came down to sort of it happened as people were writing it. There was questions. And I was thinking about it. We have, like you said, we have a bunch of cool, weird flora and fauna that exists. So I had to make it possible. That's the tricky thing about Starfinder in terms of what aliens are. So you create an alien that's like, this jungle planet has a cool, weird jungle flower on it that tries to kill you. Great. Now, if I go to a different planet that could have a jungle biome in it, is it there? Why is it there? It's so much. Like, when you talk about Pathfinders, Galarian is like, there's there's the assassin vine, and that can kind of happen in any place that there's kind of warm, temperate, foresty zone, right? But when it comes to a different planet, it's a whole thing. So it came down to like, this is how you maybe name stuff that already exists. Because also we couldn't come up with stat blocks for every new creature because then there wouldn't be enough room for the rest of the adventure.
Right.
So when you want to have like, one of our laser wolves, one of our Tashtaris, we just kind of say it's got a slightly different name. But it's the same stats, right? You can call it I ended up calling them laser wolves, because that was the sort of nickname for them to begin with. But there's a couple of new stuff. There's also lots of new stuff, weird, creepy underground creatures, but a lot of flora and fauna on the surface as well. We came up with there's a couple reasons why some of these things actually are on this planet, which is actually pretty interesting. But we have a fun new dinosaur, for instance, at one point. We've got I think one of my favorites. What it came down to is I started naming them almost not quite like Pokemon, but like in a way that they were just sort of they weren't like scientific names, right? So there's a many-legged goat creature that just ended up being called a spider goat. So that one doesn't like it's weird. Funny is that one that one sort of happens in the background more or less. So you just until you find some undead skeleton spider goats and it's kind of like fun. What was the other one? That was sort of it's in the very first volume. Gosh, I can't remember what I called them now. Oh, they were basically like panthers of some kind. Oh no, I'm blanking.
Oh, it's fine.
I can't remember what we ended up changing that to. But yeah, but clearly not one of my favorites. But there's the one of the other more interesting ones too is the mole beetle. That's sort of like one of the first things that when you land on a planet, these little guys come out and they're weird bug creatures. And they're just upset that you vibrated the ground too much, so they come out and try to bite you. That kind of stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like it could be a very fun AP. I mean, obviously, it's going to be one of those ones that you got to be in for. Like I said before, I think you really got to
commit to the concept. Yeah,
definitely. It's tricky. I mean, this is the first sort of sandbox style adventures that I had never had to develop or write or whatever. So there's a lot of just like, here's a bunch of stuff. I don't know if your players might
have
ever
fun.
Go east or west or whatever, right? But then all of these other fun things are happening. So events that occur while you're dealing with maybe exploring a cave or the plains or a mountain or wherever, you've got to also deal with political stuff and sabotage and that kind of thing.
Right. Well, it should be fun. Shifting gears, though, right? Let's talk about Junker's Delight. So this is the first of a new line of modules for Starfinder, and we're really happy to see modules make it into this game system. So can you tell us what led to the decision to bring these into Starfinder?
So it was a little bit of... early on, Starfinder adventure paths were bi-monthly. Because we had like 3 people on the whole team, and it was just sort of, and eventually they were like, well, let's. It seemed that we had a lot more demand. So shortly after Dead Sun's finished, we went to monthly again, like regular Pathfinder APs, and we just pulled up 2-3 parters, and we did some, did some other bits, and then we soon came to realize that we were putting out more than people could actually play. And granted, Pathfinder's still doing monthly as well, but they have a slightly larger, I think, a larger player base, so they can do the picking and choosing. But we also are coming to see that people enjoy these 3-part adventures even in the Pathfinder side of things. So all constantly trying to think about how we can better serve all the readers and the players and whatnot. But we cut back with Horizons of the Vast back to bi-monthly again. And so, which means, well, it's good, it eases the rate in which people can sort of burn through these, or not, or have to wait, to whatever, to play them. We sort of had a little bit more capacity in which to do modules. And people are always saying, when are you going to do standalone modules? And these are even great, smaller than a 3-part adventure path. You can play through one of these as a short campaign. And so it came down to that. It was like, well, we got to put one out. Let's put one out. And we all decided that it would be a good idea to make the first module incredibly beginner friendly. Not quite a beginner box adventure, just sort of like if you wanted to go pick up Starfinder, the core rulebook, you could grab Starfinder, the core rulebook, you could buy Junker's Delight, and that you could run the game. You didn't need you didn't need any Alien Archives. You didn't need any other setting books or whatever. We decided, we'll just put all the stat blocks in this adventure, make it as simple as possible, have lots of sidebars for new GMs, how to talk to your players about, when to level up and what to do when you level up. It was very much sort of meant to be that way. And so it's meant to be sort of an evergreen, always on the shelf adventure. And I was like, well, I'd love to write that because it'd be a feather in my cap.
Yeah, I've been GMing that for our Twitch show, and I've definitely noticed that the layout is so well done in the sense that like everything you need for every encounter is right there on the page. It's one of the few adventures that I've not had to like flip between lots of different books to be prepared for. Like I can just run it, which has been really great for doing a live stream of it. It's like made that really easy, and so like. It was helpful. I'm a pretty experienced Starfinder GM, and I still found it extremely helpful to have that. Is that something that you think we'll see in modules going forward? Is that or was this one like this is going to be our kind of a starter module?
Yeah, I mean that was the focus of it, right? There's that the module that I think it has come out because I have a copy of it, right? The Liberation of Locus 1, the second module, is meant to be sort of follow up. It's not as doesn't walk you through everything, but it's like, well, at this point, now we need to introduce Starship Combat at least. So we introduce that. We have a more sort of open. It's a little sandboxy in places. So that one sort of is a sort of a continuation of that, but it doesn't have as many of the sidebars and the talking directly to the GM about doing this, that, and the other thing that the Junker's Delight has. So it eases you into it. You play those two, you're sort of eased in. You're a veteran GM at that point. You can pick up any of our other upcoming modules and play them right off the bat, or any adventure path volumes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're great. Even if you are used to TTRPGs but you haven't played Starfinder, having something small that goes through the rules, eases you into it, that sort of thing can be very, very helpful for, getting someone into a new system, even if they're already experienced, especially if they're not, right?
Sure.
But what about the story for Junker's Delight? How did you land on this story? Any particular inspirations that went into this story?
There was a lot. We talked a little bit, bandied around what would it be. It should probably take place in the Pack Worlds. It should be kind of fun, right? Because even if you're a sort of veteran GM, it should be fun to play. We bounced around a couple things. There's like a similar kind of place in Absalom Station called like Bot Scrap that has it's a big junkyard. And I thought, that's kind of fun. Let's think about junkyards. I have to admit that the title, maybe often I come title first, right? I kind of think of a title that title gives me an idea of what the adventure is about. I will in a 6-volume AP or even a 3-volume AP like start with some titles that sound kind of cool, and then the third volume of Horizons of the Vast is called Whispers of the Eclipse. And I was like, that's cool. Now, what the heck does that mean? And then I've got to figure it out from there. This title kind of was half a joke. because my brain was thinking of the song Rapper's Delight.
Yeah.
And I just wrote Junker's Delight, and I was like, oh, what's the place? Because and at the time I was also thinking about this place in Akaton that got added after it's sort of in the copy fit phase where these pages are short, we need to add text. So I added this tiny little paragraph of a place called Kefak Depot, which is essentially calling something Roachtown. Because Kefaks are vermin and they eat junk. I was like, and there's a lot of crashed starships on Akaton. We sort of went through that, but this is like junk tourism. And so from there, I grabbed that little seed that I had planted years ago. Had this other sort of goofy title in my head, and it sort of planned out, and I vision, you got it. You're coming here because someone wants some help, or you're looking for something, and then they're like, let's go through the junk and find a crashed starship that has something fun in it. And that's basically where the story sort of blossomed from.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a lot of fun for sure. I mean, like, there's some great characters out in the junk fields there that are a lot of fun.
Yeah,
to mess around with.
I had fun writing them. For sure.
And so I will say, this was clearly intended to be for new players and everything, and it's really new player friendly. However, I got to say that Junk Golem fight is no joke.
Yeah, that's why it's on the cover, right?
Right.
I was a little worried. that cover looked way more badass than anything in the actual adventure.
Well, it served to be certainly a centerpiece for us in the adventure.
Terrific.
It was a very difficult fight with some casualties in it. So,
It happens.
Checks out that way sometimes.
You got to learn.
Yeah, but as you said, that was the cover monster. So
yeah, it's got to be exciting. Did your players seek out some of the side quests to sort of before you go against the junk golem, make sure you know that.
I had
immune to
one
magic
of them was
stuff.
Yeah, one of them was playing a junkomancer, and it had a lot of. They had a really, really good plan of action going into that fight, and they all rolled terrible initiative and then terrible stealth. And I rolled really well, and it just didn't work out good for them. They were instantly on the back foot and fighting from the back foot the whole time,
Yeah. I mean, that's how the game works. Sometimes you just get terrible
recipe
rolls
for success. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jason, as we are nearing the back matter of this interview, we have a few questions about the back matter that you've had a hand in.
Yeah.
So you wrote the Aslanti lore section for the Against the Aeon Throne AP, which is one that we finished, on our show. How was that? This is a pretty storied piece of Galarian lore. How was that bringing that into the Starfinder universe?
So actually, I didn't write that one, but I did develop the entirety of that AP essentially. So, but that one was an interesting one because I was sort of still learning the ropes, and Rob McCreary had already written the outline. It was just a matter of finding some authors to write to do it right, and then working with them. But so speaking of that, Rob McCreary was our Aslanti Star Empire guru at the time. It was sort of his idea to bring the Aslanti into space and bring them to Starfinder and make them our evil space Nazi empire, right? So he wrote a bunch of that flavor, around much of that setting stuff about what's going on here. Oh, there's two imperators and a twin brother, twin sister. What's going on there? And we had to come up with a lot of stuff. But I did have a lot of fun. Sort of at some point. I was in the core rulebook. I think it says something like the Aslanti Star Empire has this many systems with 17 or 27 different sentient species. And it's well, now I have to name all of those. Rob, why did you write that in the core rulebook? So I got we got some people to write some of those names up, and we came up with some playable ones that might be fun. And that was a lot of fun to add just continually add to that. And it's what's life like in the Aslanti Star Empire? Well, if you're not Aslanti, it kind of sucks.
It turns out not so good for anybody who's not Aslanti.
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't write this one either, but it did say in the back that you wrote the Corrupted and Shadows part of Signal of Screams.
Yes.
So, which features the shadow corruption itself. This affliction has been quite a hurdle for the Southern Tomfoolery PCs for our main cast in our main show. Can you tell us a little bit how you came up with the corruption? Mm-hmm. Did you develop the mechanics for it as well, or was it just the flavor?
Yeah, that was Signal Screams was my first full concepting of an AP. Right, we were coming off the sort of we need a 3-parter that comes off against the Aeon Throne, and I was like, well, I don't know. It's early. It's still early in the game, sure, but let's do space horror. I want to get some space horror out there right off the bat. And so I came up with the idea. It's very much Hellraiser in space. Mm-hmm. Going with the Velstrax, which we were at the time sort of transitioning from calling them all Chitons into this new sort of terminology for our setting as a whole, the Pathfinder Starfinder setting as a whole. I love that kind of stuff. I like movies like Event Horizon and stuff like that. So I was like, let's do this.
For sure.
It's all horror. It'd be fun if it were set, start us off in a sort of, you're at this cool spa or resort, and then bad stuff starts to happen. And then from there, I thought it would be interesting to do a corruption mechanic. And so this AP would be less about saving the galaxy, although it is a little bit, but it's more about stopping yourself from going totally into shadow.
Yeah, definitely.
It becomes very personal. It's not the Against the Aeon Throne one. You sort of show up at a place, and your friend NPC has been kidnapped, so you've got to chase them down into the Aeon Throne, and it ends up being this whole thing about stopping the Aslanti from getting a faster than light drive, a better faster than light drive. But this one was more like, you got to save your own soul.
Right.
I had been. I think I was an editor when Horror Adventures was coming out. So I read through all that, basically, and all that corruption system that existed in there with all the different... You could be turning into a lycanthrope or a vampire or whatever. And thought that was very interesting, but the way that the, Pathfinder First Edition way it does it was a little harsh for me. It seemed destined to just kill you very quickly. So I took that idea and kind of wanted to distill it down into Starfinder mechanics and ease up a little bit on it, not a ton, because it should be very dangerous. But so the idea of instead of having to make a saving throw every day, you only have to make that saving throw if you're out of resolve points. Otherwise, you can spend a resolve point to see if you just immediately succeed. So it becomes that resolve mechanic sort of actually becomes about your resolve for fighting off this corruption.
Right.
And then I could,
And so the longer day, adventuring day that you have, you're not as able to kind of fight that off,
Right. Because in Starfinder, you might have great big swaths of time where you're sitting in your starship going from point A to point B through the drift, right? You've got a week or 2 or 3. And it felt like it would have been needlessly punishing to be like, halfway through your drift journey, you turn into a shadow creature and your character is dead. The end.
Yeah.
It didn't happen in a fight. It didn't happen it just happened for reasons. So that sort of on those times when you're relaxed and whatever, you can study and meditate or whatever it is that you need to do for your character to fight off this shadow corruption. But like you said, when you have a real big fight, a couple big fights, you get really knocked down or, and you've got to spend the day spending that resolve to get your stamina back so you survive. At the end of the day, you're like, I'm exhausted. Oh no, I'm turning into a shadow person. Yeah.
Right. I think it's been very interesting mechanic to work with, and I think that it brings in a level of horror that is otherwise difficult to manage in a Starfinder or Pathfinder game because the PCs are so strong and they're like superheroes. So putting them in like a horror situation can be very difficult because the game is designed to lift them up and make them powerful. And horror is often about being powerless.
Yeah.
So while it has a lot of the Hellraiser aesthetic, I think most of the horror of Signal Screams definitely comes from that internal battle that all the characters are going through. At least that's what we've taken from it.
Good. No, thank you.
Journey through it.
I appreciate it. And Signal Screams is a 7th level adventure beginning, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
already pretty powerful. I have this minor regret that if I'd known better, I would have maybe switched the two, because it seems like you should be higher level to go against the Aslanti Star Empire.
Yeah.
Space horror you should be very almost powerless because you're first level, but that's the way it panned out.
Well, it worked out because, if you do play the Aslanti adventure first before the Signal Screams one, as a GM, I had 3 adventure books worth of stuff to use against them. Their history and memories and like their bonds that I could then, corrupt those themselves and so. You have all this shared history from the first one that you can just manipulate into evil versions of it throughout Signal Screams. And I find it to be nice to have that amount of time with the characters before they get corrupted, so you knew who they were when you were losing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and you've made me feel better about it. Thank you.
Good. If there's anything this interview could do, yeah.
I like how certain events trigger a will save against corruption, almost like a sanity check. Certain horrific things that the players encounter will also, as opposed to it being just a once a day thing.
Sure, yeah.
I like the idea of like it working almost like a sanity sort of role as well.
Yeah. We built those into the adventure, so they weren't like part of the subsystem. So it's like now so you could see. So a GM running this would see, like, if I want to do any kind of other corruption, it doesn't have to be a shadow. It could be the vampire or the ghoul or whatever. Here are things that you would do to your players, also in the adventure. That's not just a daily thing, like you said.
Right. It's triggering events or whatever, and I've certainly added a few of those within the adventure myself.
Yeah, it's tough to tell. I haven't read the AP, obviously, since I'm playing in it. So
because we're still playing it, but yeah.
But
how far are you all?
We're almost done.
We're in the heart of night.
Okay.
Yes. We
that was one of those. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say about on the next time we play, they will be starting on the final map of the adventure. So
that is one of those things that I was talking about earlier, where an author will surprise you. Where we had named the adventure Heart of Night, and I didn't have any. I was just like, you get there to the Shadow Plane to do some stuff. You have to fight the doctor, and the author came back with like, what about a giant beating heart wrapped in chains the size of an asteroid? I'm like, hell, sure, why not? Let's do it. That's weird.
How could I possibly say no to that?
How could I possibly say no to that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and from interviews that we've had with other writers and stuff like that, talking about kind of some of the freedom that they get to really just add their own thing to it. I think it's great. It's nice that it's not that it's more collaborative, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to. That's what I try to do. I mean, there's certain beats that I feel need to be hit for story purposes when I know that all of the story, but stuff in the middle, oftentimes, like name characters. I don't know, go for it. I'm not going to name every character for you. That stuff is hard.
Yeah.
So I got a team of 6 writers to do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, it's been a really interesting AP, if not challenging at times. I don't think that we were necessarily horror buffs going into it, but
okay, fair enough.
It is a really fun AP at the end of the day. So what can you tell us about what's coming up for Starfinder's future? Like what's in the pipe right now? Is there any hints that you can give us about upcoming stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we all talk about the Drift Crisis event, essentially, right? We have this event book that's coming out May-ish, I think, that has basically what we're doing is we're breaking the drift a little bit, sort of as in the setting, and then putting it back together. But we're doing it over the course of an entire year. So the Drift Crisis hardcover, when that comes out, that's got lots of player options, but it's also got a lot of adventure seeds for how GM can run a Drift Crisis campaign. Things that go all over the place, from small sort of personal stories to wide-ranging galactic changing stories, right? Fixing the problem, for instance, is one of them. And it's got some new creatures in it. It's got all kinds of great stuff in it that I think people are going to like. And how we're kind of supporting all that, we're starting off with a Of course, we're going to have a map, a flip map. We got to have one of those. But we're starting off with a one-shot, one of those digital one-shot adventures that sort of takes place before what we call the drift crash, which is the thing that happens at the beginning of the drift crisis.
Yeah.
The result of the breaking of the drift is this drift crash where people get flung all over the place and flung out of the drift or other things. And then we have the Drift Crashers Adventure Path, 3-volume AP that I am jealous that I didn't get to develop because it is bonkers. That's done by Jason Tondro, who is have just sort of come off the Fly Free or Die adventure path that's been so, I think, pretty popular with everyone, and that was another one of those tropes we took too long to probably get to. But he was the right person for the job, so I'm glad that he was the one who got to do it. But he's doing Drift Crashers, and it is kind of, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's all the crazy sci-fi tropes that you can kind of think of are going to be there. You're going to recognize a lot of stuff from Star Trek and stuff like that, other wacky stuff.
Yeah.
And then why not? So there's another 3-volume AP after that that's called Drift Hackers, and that is the higher level one that I'm working on right now that fixes the drift crisis canonically. This is the that's what we're going to say. This is and that's going to come out at the end of this year and more into next year. We're planning on maybe even having a module somewhere in there as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Like that would also be related to the
drift crisis. There's going to be society scenarios that are related to the drift crisis. You might go fix a drift beacon, rescue some people who got stranded, that kind of stuff. So we're peppering all sorts of stories in it so that if you don't have your own campaign but you still want to participate in this drift crisis event, you can. And through our own stories.
My question about the 2 APs that are going to come out. You said you have 2 3-book APs that are kind of about the drift crisis. Why is that considered 2 separate adventures paths as opposed to 1 6-book adventure path? Because
the Drift Crashers is, I will say that it's about finding your way home.
Okay.
It's a Lost in Space kind of adventure, right? And that has a definite conclusion that you can play through and end, and then someone else, you can say, oh, then someone else fixes the drift crisis, or the GM says, oh, I have a way that I think I want to do it. Drift Hackers is about fixing the problem, the overall problem. So it's got a wider scope. It's less personal in a lot of ways, but again, it's adventurers, come help me. You help a god out with their problem, you're going to get rewarded for that, right? It's going to be a definite story to tell.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And you can lead one into the other. You can do it as a one volume, but we broke it up to 2 because a lot of people are saying we like these shorter APs. We like these little
definitely
pace. And if it's clear that it is 2 3-volume APs, I think that's better than a sort of 2-part 6-volume AP, right?
Yeah, and you could jump in with some already characters you have to the second one. If you're like, okay, we did Aeon Throne, and now we want to do a bigger crisis, but we want to use our characters, that does provide that. That's cool, yeah.
Do we find out the nature of the drift? That's all I want to know. Like, do we get some good drift lore in any of this?
In the Drift Crisis hardcover, there's really good drift lore. You're going to see some wacky things in Drift Hackers. I'll say that. That's more about the drift. You're going to see some very gonzo things in Drift Crashers, but that's technically not about the drift in a lot of ways. So
it's more like as you said, it's like dealing with the fallout and just like trying to get back, right?
It's a little Lost in Space. It's a little Quantum Leap. It's a little bit of all that. A little bit of Sliders, if you're familiar with that TV show.
Yeah.
Remember that old gem?
Yeah.
Drift Hackers has got basically sort of more of a single setting. You go to Illuvion, that city that's Triune's domain in the drift.
Wow!
Yeah. So we get a lot bit more about what's going on there. You get a lot of stuff about the factions of Triune who are kind of, oh no, what's happening to Triune? Triune's not saying anything, just because I want people to be excited at the end of this, and this is probably first time anyone's ever heard it. You heard it here first, folks. That the Drift Hackers gets a little Tron.
Oh, fun.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Exciting.
That's fun. That's fun.
I'm wearing that particular inspiration on my sleeve, or at least I've given that inspiration to an author to write up.
Yeah.
But it's definitely what I'm looking for.
Well,
That's awesome.
To your credit, I think that Starfinder wears its inspirations on its sleeve regularly, and that is one of my favorite things about it, is that it draws from all this other great sci-fi and is really just like unapologetic about.
Yeah.
Yes, we love this sci-fi. Here is it adapted into our setting for you to use, and I mean, like, you know, I'm running Fly Free or Die right now, and I've talked to Tandro about some of these influences, and I think it's great. You know, I love it. So yeah, thank you so much for giving us a little hint. I'm very excited about that, because as a primarily a Starfinder player, you know, the mystery of what happened to Galarian and then what's the deal with the Drift are two of those big lore mysteries that I think everybody who plays enough Starfinder eventually is like, what is going on with this? I need to know.
So Zach, we're just gonna have to speed run Devastation Arc so we can jump on Drift Crashers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I forgot about that. I kind of half forgot about Devastation Arc. That was
I know,
another
like,
one of mine.
That's been in our plans for years now, and it's like finally coming up. And there's all these other APs now that are like, "Oh, I want to play that one. I want to play that one." But
that
Devastation
one
Arc's been our cap for a while. So
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's,
We've avoided Devastation Arc questions because we have not gotten there yet, and I don't want to spoil myself on anything. I'm sure Adam would have a lot of questions he could ask you about that, but maybe you can come back on again after we finish Dev Arc, and we can pick your brain about that one.
I would love to know what people think about it, because of reasons. You've read it, right, Adam?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
it's an extremely wacky adventure.
What was I thinking? Basically, is my question there.
Basically, I told they're like, "What's the theme of this one?" I was like, "Extremely wacky Avengers." You know what I mean? Like it's an Avengers movie, but like super wacky. You know, like it's in a good way, but it's just like really weird. You know, but epic
Weirdness.
as hell. You know,
weird and epic. I think is what I was hoping for there.
Well, you did. You hit it.
All right. Well, Jason Keeley, thank you so much for coming on. Is there
Thanks
a way, if people want to interact with you online, or where they can find your sage advice or anything of the sort, where can they find you?
Sure. I mean, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Herzwesten, HERZWESTEN. Do I give as much sage advice on that? No, I kind of just talk about my life. Every once in a while, what video games I might be playing. Information about the squirrels that come onto my patio on a regular basis, and because I've been feeding them throughout the pandemic, I've garnered a small squirrel army. So come to that. Though check out all the other stuff that I'm doing for Paizo. I would say what's the next? I've got a Pathfinder adventure that's coming out some point in the near future. That is also kind of gonzo and wacky. So look out for that.
You can plug that too. This is not just.
It hasn't been any announced yet, so I can't. I don't think I can say it. So just keep your eye out for.
Yeah, sure you can, Jason. It's no big deal.
No, I don't think they would appreciate that. As an author,
we don't want to get you in trouble.
When I'm the developer and the manager, I feel like I can go a little off book. But for when I'm the freelance author,
yeah, it's like no,
take that out.
Excellent.
Yeah. Let's say that.
Right.
Let's say one other thing that I plugged that came out. It's been a bit since it came out. But there's a Mutants and Masterminds adventure that I wrote.
Nice.
Called Into the Idiot Box. That is very much a Q traps the players in a weird simulation kind of thing. About TV shows, and it's about TV shows, which one of my favorite things to do is to make up pop culture, which does remind me well, I don't know when this is coming out, but by the time this has come out, I think I will have put out my weird free cereal mascot role-playing game called This Complete Breakfast.
I've seen you on Twitter getting that together.
Yeah. So I'm going to put that out. It's probably going to be on my itch.io page, which is just itch.io/Herzwesten. I think I should have looked that up before I started talking. But there you go. You can find me. I'll link to it on my Twitter for sure. But I'm gonna be giving that away. It was a lot of fun to goof around. I like goofy stuff.
Nice.
That's me.
All right. Jason Keeley, again, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. And, until next time, we'll see you.
We'll see you.